We're gonna clean up this interlock today. It's got a lot of weeds growing through the cracks, so we're gonna use a power washer to clean up the interlock and all the cracks, and also clean the tops of the bricks. Once we're done power washing, we're gonna put in some poly sand, which is a sand, but it's polymeric, meaning when it gets wet, it gets hard, and it'll keep those weeds out. So every 2 or 3 years, you're gonna have to clean up your interlock to make it look like brand new. Okay, so we're gonna get started on power washing this interlock. So what we've got here is a gas power washer. It's the Stihl RB200. We've rented this from Mount Nemo Sales and Service for the day. They're a great shop in Burlington where you can rent lots of lawn and garden equipment. This power washer is a gas power washer. I like gas power washers because they provide a lot more power. This is about a 3,500 PSI power washer, meaning it has a lot of pressure. The thing I like most about this power washer is this attachment that goes with it. It's a circular attachment that allows the water to spread across the top of the brick. So it's going to allow us not only to clean within the cracks of the brick, but also on top. So we start using with this attachment to get the top and the surface level. Then we'll pull it off and we'll use a nozzle to get into the cracks. Once we've got deep into the cracks, allowing some room for sand to get in, we'll add some poly sand to fill the cracks. First thing you want to do before you ever start a power washer is make sure the water is on. If you don't turn the water on to the power washer and you start it, you can blow out the engine. So I've double checked, the water is already on. The hose is attached here at the bottom. So I'm gonna turn the power washer on. There's a choke, so I'm gonna choke it so that it starts. So I turn it over and just start. One thing you wanna do is get the pressure off. So if you just take a little push of the nozzle, it will release the pressure, and that's gonna allow it to start a little bit easier. So we've got a small section done with the attachment, and you can see already how much the cracks are getting pulled with all the dirt and all the weeds. So you can really see why poly sand's a really important part of your interlock, and that every few years you're going around washing it, getting rid of the weeds, and filling all those cracks to prevent weed growth. Okay, so we've cleaned the entire area using the attachment, which provides circular motion to the cleaning. So it cleans the top of the bricks, it also cleans inside of the cracks. So now we're gonna go a second time, and we're gonna take that attachment off, and we're gonna use a nozzle to get into the cracks and also to get rid of all the dirt and mud. The most important thing here is that you're very careful about where you're shooting the water, because there's gonna be a lot of dirt and a lot of sand that comes up out of here. And we had mistakes before where if you're shooting it and you're not paying attention, you can shoot that sand all over the house. You can shoot it into a pool, you can shoot it all over the place. So the entire time that you're shooting the water, it's a lot of pressure and it's gonna direct. So you wanna direct it into an area where it's okay to send. So we're gonna direct all of the water towards the gardens and the lawn, and make sure that we're not directing it towards the house and the windows. If we were in a backyard where you had a nice pool, we would not take the nozzle to the interlock, because it will surely blow that sand into your pool and you will not be happy. We're trying to clean the place, not make it worse. Just to show you the inside of this, so the water you can see is squirting out of these two nozzles. You can also see there's a lot of dirt in here, and these are very, very tiny. So we do have sometimes an issue where with all this dirt and sand, it clogs these two holes. So what we do as a general practice is we usually have 2 of these at all times. So when one gets clogged, we don't lose any productivity. We just snap another one on. We also rent these from Mount Nemo Sales and Service, and they take them back and they service them every time. And to get these cleaned out, you just need a little air compressor to shoot into those nozzles and make sure that they're nice and clean. So 2 tips. Make sure you always have 2 of these at all times. Make sure you use an air compressor to clean out these holes. So we're gonna add a nozzle to the end of this. So a power washer comes with no nozzle. And most power washers like this, you have a 15 degree, 25, and 65 degree, meaning that that's the size of the spray. I also have in my hand 1 or 0 degree. So 0 degree is like a pin. It can be actually dangerous, and if you use it, you could actually chip the stone. But it could be a really good tool if you're very careful. If you wanted to get into those cracks and make sure you got everything out, you could use it, but I'd be very careful to use this. We're not going to use it today. We're going to use the 15 degree. We find that this one works generally the best in this situation. So you could use a 25 and 65 to get a wider spray. We're gonna use 15 today. So we're gonna make sure we're spraying away from the house. Be very careful not to spray towards the house. The next step in cleaning up your interlock is to add some poly sand. We've already cleaned the entire surface, cleaned all the cracks and got all the weeds, so there's enough space for us to add it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add some polymeric sand. We picked this up from Hamilton Building Supply in Burlington. Polymeric sand comes in different colors. This one's beige, but you can pick a variety of different colors. So you want it to match the past sand that you had, so take a look at that. So we're gonna pour a little bit. We've already done some of it, so we just wanna show you how to do it. So it's better to use less than more and put it in lines, and you can keep adding it. You don't wanna have too much poly sand because then you'll have to scoop it off. And you wanna just push it. One of the most important things to know when you're putting down polymeric sand is that it cannot be put onto wet stone. If it's wet, it will activate the polymeric sand and leave what they call a haze across all of the stone. So it's really important that it's a two-step process. You wash it, make sure it's nice and dry before you put that polymeric sand down. So we have cleaned the interlock, we've gotten into the cracks, we've put poly sand into the cracks. So we're on to the second last step, which is to blow all the excess sand off of it. It's a really important part because if you don't get it off the top of the stones, it's gonna create what they call hazing, and you're gonna see haze all over this there. So what I use, we've got our Stihl SH86. This is a shredder blower, so it can blow us sand off for us. Okay, so last step in repairing the interlock is to activate the sand that we've put into all the joints, and you activate it by lightly misting all of the stone. So we've got this on the mist setting, and we're gonna get that going. We're gonna activate the poly sand so it's nice and hard and keeps those weeds out. Okay, so we've made this patio look great. It was full of weeds all over. We power washed it, got all the weeds out. We put some poly sand in there, we blew it off, and we activated the poly sand by misting it. If you want more videos like this, you can like and subscribe to Absolute Home Services. If your lawn needs some attention and you're not sure what to do, you've got a couple great options. One option is to completely get rid of the sod and put some new sod in, and that gives you a quick, beautiful result, but it costs a bit more money. Okay, so we're in the backyard and we're gonna start getting ready for the sod. So the first step for the sod is to use a sod cutter to remove the sod. So we're gonna try to get about 1.5 inches deep of a layer of sod off. You can do that manually, but that is very hard work. So what we're gonna use is a sod cutter. We rented this sod cutter from Mount Nemo Sales and Service. It's a Bluebird, which is a great brand, and it's been really great for us. So the sod cutter, it's a pretty heavy machine and it's difficult to use, but you've got this lever here where you can adjust the height so you can go to 1.5 inches. Another thing before you start sod cutting, you wanna make sure there's nothing under the sod that could become a problem. So first thing you wanna check out is irrigation. So a lot of people have irrigation lines, so they have heads and lines. So you wanna go around and make sure that you've checked all the lines and heads. We usually flag them. In this case, there aren't any irrigation heads. And the other thing is you wanna make sure there's no bell lines, Coachco lines, any phone lines or anything like that. And you've also got a generator back here that's got some power lines, which are well below 6 inches, so we don't need to worry about those. But it's certainly something you want to investigate before you do any sod cutting. Okay, I'm here with Mohammed, who's one of our crew leaders in our landscape division. He's going to be doing the work doing the sod cutting. So thanks, Mohammed, for taking this over. I can't emphasize enough the rental of a sod cutter. It makes quick work of a really difficult job. We rented this sod cutter from Mount Nemo Sales and Service. and it will cut that grass up really nicely. So all you have to do is get a wheelbarrow and take it out. At first, you might think that machine looks pretty intimidating. It's pretty big, but once you get working with it, it's not a very intimidating machine to work with. Anybody can use this type of machine. Okay, so over here, we've got an area where we're going to also put some sod down. It was pretty covered in weeds, so we took the rototiller right away and we started tilling up the soil to get rid of the weeds. A rototiller is a really great tool you can use when you've got a garden bed where you want to really pull up that soil. We rented this rototiller from Mount Nemo Sales and Service. It's a Toro product, which is a great product. And we use this as often on our jobs when we really need to get in our gardens, get those weeds and get them out of there. And then we've taken off a good layer of soil and put it in our dump trailer where we're getting rid of that soil. We want to make sure that we grade it and make it nice and smooth so when the sod goes down, it looks really nice under the tree. Now we've used the sod cutter to cut 1.5 inches of the top layer of the sod off. And now the time is to get rid of all of that sod and all those weeds so that we can lay down some soil and grade out the sod to make it nice and smooth. If we hadn't used a sod cutter, it would probably be like 5 hours of back-breaking work getting that sod all cut up with a shovel. So we're super happy we rented that machine from Mount Nemo Sales and Service. Saved us a ton of time and back-breaking work. So some tools you're going to want to definitely have when you're sodding. Well, we talked about already, the sod cutter is a really important tool, but you also want to have a hard rake so that you can pull the sod off and a shovel to get it into a wheelbarrow. So you're going to need a hard rake, a shovel, a wheelbarrow, and you're going to need somewhere to take all this excessive stuff. We use a dump trailer to put all of our waste, or you can also have a bin called and just dump it into a bin and have them remove it later. Those are really important tools to get the sod job done. So when you take on a sod project, you got to think about all of the tools and equipment you're going to need. So you're going to need to rent a sod cutter, you're going to need to have a place to dispose of all of the soil, and you're going to have to bring in some materials. You're going to have to bring in soil and you're going to have to bring in sod. So you can either hire a company like Absolute Home Services who owns trucks and trailers that can get rid of it and has all the tools you need to get the job done. Or if you're doing it yourself, if you already have a trailer and truck, that's great. But if you don't, another option would be to get it delivered. So you can get all the sod delivered, you can get the soil delivered, you can get a rental piece of equipment delivered from Mount Nemo. And then the other option I would do is just get a bin delivered to your home, fill it up with all the debris and get it taken away. Okay, so you want to do one pass over the sod and start pulling it up, but often after one pass doesn't quite get all of the spots. So you get as much as you can lifted off into the wheelbarrows and out, and then you go through it a second pass to get all the last bits of sod that weren't pulled up from the first cut. Once all the sod has been removed, then we're going to bring in some soil so that we can lay down a nice layer of soil and grade out the ground so that when we lay the sod, it comes out nice and smooth. Okay, so now we're ready to lay the sod. Since the ground has been graded, we've made sure there's no low spots, and we've got our sod ready to lay. So first you want to figure out how much sod you need. So you figure out the square footage of the area you're sodding, and then you figure out how many rolls you need. Each roll is 10 square feet. So you figure out how many square feet you have, divide it by 10. That'll tell you how many rolls you need. And you're going to want to add about 10 to 15% extra because you're going to trim some of that to go around different things on the lawn. So we usually use Kentucky bluegrass here in Ontario that we got from Conn's Nurseries today. You need to get sod fresh so it's not dried out. When you lay the sod, you want to lay it in a brick pattern so that the seams are not touching each other. You also want to make sure that you butt that sod up really, really tight. If you don't butt it up tight, it will split as it starts to dry, and you'll see gaps between all the different rolls that you put down. After you lay the sod, you want to roll out all the sod to make sure that there's no bubbles or anything and it's nice and flat. And then you want to make sure you start watering that sod right away so that those roots take hold. And you want to make sure you water that sod every single day for 2 weeks, otherwise your sod will die. So when you're laying the sod, inevitably you're going to have to go around different parts of the house. In this case, we had to go around this generator, so we had to cut the sod. So what we do is flip over the sod and we cut the soil side of it. That allows us to cut it and pull it away. The other thing is we try to use as much sod as we can so that we're not throwing sod away at the end. So we try to lay as many rolls as possible and then fit the sod into the spots that are left open. So those are the 5 steps to laying the sod down. First, you want to cut the sod, and then you want to get rid of it. And then the next step is to grade the sod with 1 inch of soil, and then put down the sod in a brick layer pattern, roll it out, and then water it. So if you really want to maintain a healthy lawn, it takes consistent work every single month and every single year. As soon as you stop maintaining your lawn, you're going to run into problems. So a fertilizer and weed control program is probably the first thing. So as soon as the snow melts and the spring comes, you want to put down your first fertilizer with a quick release fertilizer. And then every 6 weeks throughout the entire season, you want to make sure you're putting down fertilizer and at least 3 rounds of weed control. We use an organic herbicide called Fiesta 3 times a season on our company's properties to make sure that the lawns look great. Each year you want to aerate your lawn to reduce compaction, add some seed and some soil, and you're going to have a beautiful looking lawn all the time. Once you've removed all of the sod, the next step is to lay down 1 inch of topsoil. And what's really important when you lay down that topsoil is that you grade the soil away from the house. So you want to have a 2% slope. And in this situation, we've got an easement here, so we're going to direct the water so that it goes away. It's important that you make sure you grade it properly the first time, because if you don't grade it properly, you're going to get puddling and pooling and water going in the wrong spots. So this part of the process is really important, to take your time and grade it right. If you've ever walked on a lawn that's a little bit lumpy, it's because the grading process in the soil wasn't done properly. So you want to make sure that you grade it and nice and flat, so when you lay the sod, you've got a beautiful lawn that's nice to walk on. If you like this video, we've got lots more, so subscribe, like, and comment below. And if you're looking for someone to do this work for you, you can click the link below and ask us to come by for a free quote.